Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here today. Hopefully, we can, as always, try and deliver some value for your time today. Let's let's jump right in here. Today's call is going to be about, how to book more work, how to get ready for the fall, and how to make sure that we have backlog. Out of curiosity, though, before we get going, just so I know what I'm working with, who's booked right now out to October? Give me a one in the chat if you're booked all the way out to October. Right? So basically a 3-month backlog. Who's got, less than that, maybe 50% of that backlog? Okay. All right. And who has more than that? So we're talking about a 90-day backlog. That is sort of the prime, the ideal amount of backlog. Anything more than that, we want to be pulling on some brakes. We want to be raising prices for sure and getting our numbers up, extending our margins. All right. If we're more extended than that, and I've had some builders and contractors brag to me about having 6 months or a year. All right. Typically, what we find in that situation is that they've either underbidded and left a lot of money on the table. All right. Or their prices are going to change and they're leaving their business exposed. So we don't want to have a year is way too much. Too much can happen in a year, but 3 months is generally a very healthy backlog, and of which pace we can start to work on increasing our margins, not so much increasing the backlog. Okay, so we're working with a couple of guys here that are in the comfort zone. All right. Now, for the ones that have in October and it's empty, the fall bookings are being locked in right now. I don't know how many of you guys have noticed the increase in sales. I know we certainly have with our clients as well as with my own business. We actually set a 30-day record over the last 30 days, which followed in July. We had one of the slowest Julys. So we only did about 800K in sales, which was really low for our July and almost had me worried for a minute. But we followed that back up with almost 2.6 in the last 30 days. So something has definitely shifted, and I'm seeing the same pattern across other businesses as well. All right. So it's indicator that we had a lot of demand in the market, and depending on where you are in the country, this may or may not be the case. We're in Canada. I know a lot of places in the US have been feeling sort of those pinches, especially along the border. We had a lot of the trade stuff going on. So it really created a vacuum, and we're just starting to see that sort of take off right now. All right. So roughly about 68% of the $1 million contractors will hit October with empty fall calendar. This is what we see a lot, especially operators. Okay. They're most famously for having the same brake system. And what I see most often is that because they're doing sales and production, all right, once we see a little bit of production or once we get, sales down our pipeline, the tendency is to take our foot off the gas on sales and then focus on that production. And that's a big mistake because this is what introduces the roller coaster ride that you're putting yourself on with the revenue. Okay. We get a bunch of work, we sell a bunch, and then we wait till, those jobs are complete or those jobs consume us. And then here we go down the roller coaster and having to try and scramble and get jobs into place. Right. So average bookings lost is about 47K. Okay. So, and contractors who don't run a quality outreach between August 15th and September 15th would see the average of this. Okay. And that's just those are stats from, the clients that we've worked with as well as some market stats. So at any given moment, all right, just in not following up, not following through on your quotes, you're losing an average of 47K. And that's for a contractor doing $1 million or less. All right. It gets quite a bit higher as you would have an expanded scope. If you're in commercial, if, again, you're doing larger scale projects, it could be much, much higher. That's just the average. Okay. The 3-week window. So homeowners will lock in contractors before Labor Day. So again, we're kind of in that point where it was a little bit slow before the August holidays. It may continue to be, but once we kind of hit that beginning of September, that's where we can see a average jump across every type of contractor we work with. Okay. Anybody been experiencing higher than normal sales in the last 3 to 4 weeks? Give me a one in the chat. Anybody's been experiencing higher than normal? Okay. All right. So give me a guilty in the chat if you haven't texted a single past client about fall work yet. So if we have not followed up, if we've been so busy, again, no follow up, not getting more work on our board. Ignore the storm event in your zip code. This is more for roofers. Okay, didn't reach out. Okay, I've been guilty of that before in the past, although we don't chase storms anymore. But you know that can happen. Zero fall specific marketing running right now. This is a big no-no. Okay, so our campaigns need to change with the seasons. For you guys advertising or working with agencies, make sure that your content and the ads that you're running, if you're running ads, even if you're doing social media, even if you're doing, even on your website, stuff like that, you have to make sure that your content is changing for the seasons. People, you'd be very surprised how influenced the market is by seasonal changes. All right. And when you're running, summer ads in the fall, people will have the tendency to just flip through those. And again, you also want to kind of tie it down to creating urgency. Okay. So for anyone running ads, anyone doing any marketing, whatsoever, you should be matching with seasons. Watched a neighbor of yours active job site and called someone else. Who's had that experience? Never asked a happy client for a referral in writing. Okay, another cardinal sin that I see every single day. I was actually just talking with a client, an electrician, actually a very close friend of mine. All right, and we were talking about his referral. And being an electrician, you absolutely do somewhat depend on those, as well as your ticket price. And we can always tell if our technician is doing well by the number of referrals that we're collecting, right? So we can see if there's a problem by the reviews and referrals that a technician's collecting, and it should be regular. Okay. Told yourself fall will come instead of going and getting it. Okay. So for you guys that are sitting in this call today, all right, I want you to think about the action steps you're going to take at the end of this call. All right. I don't want you sitting here just taking in more information that you're going to do absolutely nothing on. All right. If you're just here for the education, that's fine. All right. But for the contractors that are looking to grow their business, all right, looking to, seize moments, all right, think about the actions we're going to take. All right. So 5 moves in 21 days that hit 200K for the fall calendar, right? So first of all, first move, past clients, text everyone. Okay. Very easy thing, especially if you have a CRM. Okay. If you can go back to past clients. All right. If you're doing insurance work, I know that we had a few guys on last week and the week before that were, so I threw this one in for you, is the insurance work, the storm chasing. August always, especially in certain climates, in certain places, we're here in Ontario, it's storm season, right? We get the big thunderstorms in that are mixed with hail, and we're staying on top of those. I know a lot of other regions in the US are having the same thing. So again, make sure that you're optimizing for your insurance chase. The neighborhood route. All right. We talked about this a little bit last week for you guys that are here for a second time, but probably one of the easiest things to optimize right now and take action on, all right, is how you dominate your neighborhoods. All right. So if you are a residential contractor or a commercial contractor, you can run the play in the same sectors, done a little bit differently. All right. Are your lawn signs up? Have you done your door knocks? Have you the 10 in front, 5 beside? All right. Are we informing the neighbors of a project starting? All right. Having those conversations. If you want to get fancy, are you putting up your branded tents? So everyone sees your logos and your brands, moving through the neighborhood. Are you making strategic deals with your homeowners or even commercial clients for video reviews, right? Where they volunteer for a slight discount to be the cheerleader for the community, right? And you're able to use content and create content from the testimonials. Okay. These are simple things that we can do and start to implement. Another one we talked about last week, but I'll bring it up again, having a small gift when you're closing out your jobs for homeowners. Okay. Personally, at our company, we give them a cutting board with our brand on it and an umbrella. And they love that. All right. But that's always coming with our referral link. We actually have a QR code and an offer to them for referrals. All right. we actually compensate them. We offer $500 per closed account. Okay. And you should as well. All right. This gives you a reason as well to reach back in the future and ask for referrals. We're actually compensating those. Okay. And a great way to build active salespeople that are your past customers. And then the last one is the fall ad blitz. Okay. Great time. Again, if you get the ads correct, great time to really catch people in those moments and getting them, creating urgency. So for example, all right, winter's coming in some places in the country. All right. We always leverage that and getting them concerned and having them think about maybe the roof going through another bad season. Okay. That's always allowed us to create some urgency. All right. We do this in a lot of other different ways. And then the other thing is for you guys that are running CRMs and doing any sort of general marketing, all right, the best place to test your campaigns and run your campaigns is back through your CRM. Okay. Before you go launching campaigns on Meta or anywhere else, one of the best places to test your creatives and test your offers is in your free accounts with your CRM or on your social media, your organic social media. Okay. So we got 5 moves here. All right. I would only like you guys, if you have enough time, to pick one. All right. Today's about taking action. We want to pick one that we can focus in on, and you would be very surprised on how easy it is, all right, to get these things in and how well they work. You'll kind of kick yourself for not doing them in past seasons. Okay, so let's go through these a little bit specifically. If you have any questions about anything that I'm bringing up here, feel free to unmute yourself. Let's have a chat. We've got a smaller group here today, so I'm more than open to have a chat with you if you want any clarity or if you hear anything that that you want to understand a little bit better. So again, here's the first play, especially with CRMs. Okay, we want to reach back to every client from the last 24 months. Okay. Why the last 24 months? And why now? Why is it now that's really important? Okay. What I found, especially during the late dog days of the summer and the August before the kids go back to school, is that's when people are taking vacation. All right. That's when whether you're in the commercial or in residential markets, people are generally off. All right. They have time off with the kids. They're at the cottage. They're active. They're doing things. And you may or may not notice, but they tend to actually respond more. All right. We catch them at a time where they're, not bombarded with work. All right. And, again, we've been able to engage in some good conversations, and definitely they're around family. If they're on vacations and stuff, that's where referrals can come into play. And it's just about timing. Okay, so great time right now to run this play. If you've got 200 clients or more, again, you have no excuse, but you should be using those through a CRM. Okay, as well as creating urgency with your text. So don't just text them, hey, that would be terrible, right? And I would suspect that it wouldn't go very far. All right, we really want to be intentional about what it is exactly that we're offering or how we're creating urgency with them or what the incentive is for them. Okay, so I'll give you a really good example of one that we just ran for all of the customers that had got quotes basically from January 4th that had not confirmed that they went with someone else. All right, we basically had our supplier give us a price increase, which was actually in effect. All right, we weren't actually getting the price increase, but the walk-in price was increasing. We took that letter, all right, and we emailed it out and texted out to all of our clients that were still on the fence, so they knew that there was a 12% or 10% increase. All right, that helped to contribute to one of our record months. People are genuinely concerned about paying more for things. All right, so if they were just thinking about, oh, I'm going to get to the fall, you can create some urgency, you can create some demand, but that was thought out, right? Like, how am I going to create urgency in our campaign to get people to think now? All right, 20 to 30 per day for 7 days or one at a time. Okay, again, just if you are manually texting, I hope to God you're not. All right, for everybody here, if you haven't got a CRM, it may be time. I don't care what size you are. I now recommend everybody, don't care if you're just a guy in a truck, all the way up, you need a CRM these days. And it's primarily for being able to quickly implement campaigns and to be able to have a good communication train with your clients. And what should we expect from this? All right. So this one play, we had a 20 to 30% reply rate, not so bad. And we had an 8 to 12% book rate. Okay. So again, I gave you one example of how you can position this 30 to 80K. All right. Just sitting there in your pipelines. All right. So we're timing the touch point. All right. We're using hopefully our CRMs, and we're getting that conversion. So out of curiosity, before I go forward, how many of you guys have CRMs? Just so I know what I'm working with. How many of you guys are actively using a CRM? Okay, good. All right. Just wanted to make sure we got a few people on here. Okay. All right. So again, here's for my roofers and for some of the insurance guys from our last call. Generally, like I was saying, we get affected by a lot of hail all over states in Canada. There are a number of services, one being Hail Watch, that you can tap into if that's your market. All right. Even general contractors can benefit from this quite a bit. And just knowing where the storms and where the damage has hit, if you're, a restoration contractor, another really great one, it's typically the first one in there, and the first one there ends up owning the storm. Okay. And especially through these summer months, that's where the accumulation of it tends to be, and into early September. Okay. We also want to think of our strategy if we do get into those storms in terms of your door knocking. Now, I would also suggest, if you're running door knockers, you run them regularly, not just when you have storms. Everyone can benefit from them. They have a very good ROI, just about as high as your lawn signs if you're doing residential. All right. And then in terms of your offer, again, there's so many different combinations of it, but generally it's a free inspection, or an insurance evaluation. All right. Now, this is often where I see the biggest balls get dropped. And I'm gonna switch this up a little bit and talk, if there's anyone on here in commercial or maybe working with GCs, you can also apply this neighborhood domination that we install with all of our clients, and I use myself personally. But every time you're in a neighborhood, you have an opportunity to multiply by 3. Okay. The way that I look at it is I want to own the neighborhood. I want to be a branded, trusted name there. All right. So that way, when someone else comes in to do work, they're actually frowned upon. Okay. No one trusts them. And you can do that quite easily, right? And this can apply to more than just an exterior. We do it with bathroom guys. We've done it with kitchen guys, where they've gotten 7 or 8 jobs on a single street, and they do that consistently over and over again. It's much easier to stay in one location, all right, than it is to jump around and move around as much. What I also see a lot of, and hopefully no one's doing this, but guys that just rely on the top of funnel leads, all right, but don't do anything to try and preserve the areas they're working in. The best chance you have to getting to a customer that's not price sensitive, meaning that they didn't price shop you around and that you've already built trust with, all right, is the neighbors. Okay. They just watched you complete a neighbor's job. And at that point, a lot of times you can get a lot of very easy go ahead projects. All right. Especially if you're doing decks, if you're doing anything exterior where it's visible. Okay. You can also leverage your homeowner, allowing them to use you as an open house, or you to use them rather as an open house. A great way to do it. And it just takes a little bit extra effort. Okay. When we're in the neighborhood, all right, when we're already there, one of the easiest things, again, is to remember your 10 in front, or 5 beside, 10 in front. Okay. Where if you have the time and ability, we're going to give those neighbors a knock, and we're going to let them know that we've got construction going on. We're going to leave a card. Okay. Generally, this is not a hard push for a sale. All right. But it goes a very long way. All right. In getting them interested in possibly doing work with you. Can't tell you how many jobs we've just had lay down sales, probably 3 last week, by just doing this. Okay. Because it's not a pressure sale thing. It's literally being responsible, informing the neighbors. All right. Being a general good member of the community. All right. And it lowers people's guards. And if they have any work that they are considering getting done, all right, sometimes they will move forward with that. Okay. The follow-up for 5 days. So again, I want to give you guys a couple little hints on this for residential, for commercial. It's not enough anymore just to go out, have a great meeting with someone, and that's where it stops, right? Even if you're sending maybe some automated follow-ups and stuff, people are generally resistant to a lot of that. All right. We want to look at how we can differentiate our client experience. All right. Meaning that, you don't want to sound and look like everybody else that's coming through the door. One of the ways that we do that is by building enormous amounts of trust. Okay. The first thing that we've made some adjustments for that you may absolutely jack from us, when you've set an appointment or somebody set an appointment for you to go out and see an owner, take a second and shoot a quick video. Let them see your face, introduce yourself before you go out to visit them, right? It takes you 20 to 30 seconds, all right? But it immediately starts to build some trust, okay? And that is what we're lacking in all of our sales, right? No one trusts anybody. We're in the post-trust era, all right? So when we've made an appointment and we're going out to, see a homeowner, it generally will take 20 to 30 minutes before that homeowner's nervous system, all right? So it's actually not them being threatened by you, but their nervous system will take you as a intruder, okay? And a lot of times, if you've done any sort of high-end sales or anything like that, one of the hardest things to do is to disarm somebody. Okay. Especially in a short conversation or an hour, it's very hard to build enough trust. All right. So we have to be thinking about all the ways that we can win trust before the call. All right. If you're going in and they don't know you, like you, or trust you yet, you already have so much to do and so much against you in terms of making that sale. And that's where we see a lot of guys having to make 2 or 3 trips back to, to close the deals. Okay. So shoot a quick video, easiest thing in the world. Everyone has a phone in their hand. All right. Be friendly. All right. Let them know who you are before you go out. And then if you want to, after the call, all right, or after you've met with someone, always send a follow-up to that meeting. All right. We call it the 1-day thank you. All right. That 1-day thank you letter. Anything that was outstanding, you're going to give them. All right. You can send that an email or a text. And again, we've been having great success with the video as well there, where they, again, they gives you a chance to see your face again. All right. So little touches here can go a very long way, especially if you're dealing with a third party that's purchasing. We've seen a lot of that this year. So for example, we have an elderly couple and their daughter's purchasing a new roof. All right. Our biggest thing was getting over the trust barrier. They had a parent that was had Alzheimer's, so they had some concerns there. So again, we used trust to win the deal, and it was primarily because of how we communicated. Right. So again, you can apply those. They don't take much more time. All right. But they go a very, very long way. So the next here, we want to activate the referral bounty. Okay. Everybody should be thinking about this as well. All right. It takes about 21 days and it can be an incentivized referral. Okay. So if you don't have a CRM or sending out emails, I don't care how you do it. You can create a gift card. You can create a postcard. All right. You can mail these things out. You can have it shared in your social media. All right. There's really no limit. All right. To putting the offer out there. But where I see a lot of guys kind of miss the opportunity is they don't know where to start or they just don't start. Okay. But having that paid referral, all right, really changes the dynamic. And again, how many of you guys have sold to people that maybe are in the sales market? How many of you guys have sold to contractors, that could work with you again? Or there's literally limitless opportunity here, right? Most of your homeowners, and especially if they've had a great experience with you, would have already referred you. All right. Adding that little touch ensures that they do it consistently. All right. For a reason. All right. So that's the difference between getting one-time referral. Maybe they referred you to the neighbor. All right. And then having possibly a lifetime of referrals. Okay. I often use the example, and I love to share this. We have some clients, all right, oddly enough, one in particular that comes to mind, that we never actually did work for him. We quoted his project. He had someone else do it, but loved the experience that we provided and our professionalism. All right. And started referring us. Okay. It's been over a decade that since we had our engagement with him, and he's referred us 30 times. All right. And we've kept incentivizing. All right. We've won many of these projects. They're a much higher percentage, but think about that for a second. How many people here on this call, all right, has, possibly sold to somebody that has one of those personalities, right? How many of them know of a customer right now that would do that? Okay. So more than just getting the one referral, we want to turn people into a forever sales machine for us. Okay. And that's how you do it. We want to, again, get your offer out. So what I don't want you guys getting stuck on, and I know a lot of you do, if you don't have a CRM, I don't care. All right. Today's about taking action. It's about seizing the moment that you have in front of you. All right. If you have a customer list, great. If you just have these numbers on your phone, so what? All right. Done is better than perfect. Make the offer. All right. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're not going to get a response. Okay. So you're exactly where you started. On the other hand, all it takes is one or two people to respond. All right. And where are you then? Who could use an extra one or two projects? The best place to use this as well, again, if you guys are active on social media, leave it in your social media email list. I mean, that's just taking candy from a baby. It's the most cheapest, highest ROI system to this date that you have. All right. So just sending it out doesn't have to be super fancy. All right. But let people know that you have an incentivized referral program and you're going to see some results. Okay. Very, very important, guys. Make sure you track the referrals. Okay. We have a system that automatically does it with our CRM. All right. That's those links that we send out. Again, that's a little bit more advanced, but I don't care it's not too hard to take care of if you're a smaller guy. All right. We can just put it on a doc. All right. Make sure that you're paying them fast. All right. You're going to turn these past customers into forever sales machines for you. Okay. Very low hanging fruit that you will encounter if you ensure that you're actually doing these things. Okay. The paid push targeting. All right. So again, back to the guys that are running ads or a combination. And I hope that you guys have all thought about these. It can be ran in different combinations, but your Google search, your meta retargeting. All right. We should be retargeting everybody that's come through our pipeline. So every opportunity that you've had for the last, you can go as far as up to a year. Meta gives you the option to retarget them. All right. We should be using those on both platforms so that we're getting that echo chamber. I use a lot of retargeting as a form of follow-up. All right. And I feel like this is an underutilized opportunity. You can take your whole follow-up pipeline, and you can just add that to your retargeting list. All right. You're going to be everywhere that prospect is until the moment that they say, hey, they went with someone else. All right. I'm going to follow up either subliminally or directly. And again, they're not going to be outside of my reach. They're going to definitely know who I am until they give me a no, or I'll follow up till literally I see a death certificate. Once they died, I give up. All right. But not until they tell me to go away and stop, or they've gone with somebody else. Okay. We want to also check our weekly cost per book job. All right. This is where, again, a lot of times when we're running ads or buying any sort of marketing, where contractors get themselves in a lot of trouble and misunderstanding that keeps them stuck. All right. Always understand the cost to acquire a customer. Okay. It doesn't matter how many leads you're generating for what price. Okay. It doesn't matter. That is a marketer's thing. So somebody that's just generating leads for you is going to try and get you the cheapest lead. They don't care. It's up to you to close them. I don't look at marketing that way. I look at it very differently. I need to know the cost to acquire a customer. All right. So that I know what my return on my investment is going to be. Okay. And you notice I'm saying return on my investment, because that is what marketing is. All right. It's the best. There's only two ways to grow a business. All right. We can only grow them through sales or marketing, right? One's hustle, right? One can be a lot easier, right? Where customers are coming to you and you're attracting them with great marketing, but you must know your cost, all right? What you're putting into it. What I see most often is something could be working. All right. I just had this experience about 2 weeks ago. We jumped on a call with one of our clients that was frustrated with where their sales were at and was looking to shut off some of their ad campaigns. I could very quickly look at their pipeline and go, well, actually right now you have a 12-to-1 return. We could look at the only jobs that they had sold were directly through those ads. All right. Therefore, when we looked at the revenue that was generated in that, being a slow month for them, it was about 85,000. It had all come from their ads. All right. Nowhere else had they acquired a customer from. And the cost to acquire that customer or those two customers, was about $1,200. Right. So when you look at it in that perspective, all right, it's much easier to invest in. because you don't feel like it's an expense or something that you're losing money on. But if you're not looking at these numbers, you're not investing in at least, becoming more aware of them. All right. You will always be playing the short game. All right. And this is where, again, we may have something that's a gold mine for us, but we just shut it off out of pure ignorance. Okay. So out of curiosity here, guys, rate yourself. All right. How many of these 5 could you start this weekend? All right. So past clients that we could get ready and text. All right. We could storm chase, just getting the zip codes mapped. Anybody think that they could take care of that? The neighborhood route. All right. So crew briefed and the door knock. Maybe we're going to train the PM. All right. How to do those, have those conversations, how to introduce themselves properly, right? How to not be salesy at the door. All right. And have customers interested in working with you out of your professionalism. Okay. The big one, the bounty budget approved. All right. How much can you afford? Remember, I just shared with you, all right? My cost to acquire a customer is about $1,200. All right. I am strategically paying $500 for my referral. All right. Is that profitable? Absolutely. I have absolutely no problem. In fact, we rush to send out their prepaid credit cards. We absolutely love it. Every time I see one going out, I know I've made money. Right? It's a different way to look at it. We buy them in advance, and again, I want to spend as much money as the universe will allow me on those. It is not an expense. All right? It's literally double the profit on those, right? It's cost me half the cost to acquire a customer with it. All right. And typically they're easier sales to make because someone has already referred you. Somebody's already warmed up your prospect for you. All right. And for you guys that are working off of referrals entirely, you know what I'm talking about. All right. Big difference between a referral lead and a cold outbound lead, right? A lot more steps and a lot more work. So at a cheaper cost, it's a no-brainer. All right, the fall ad blitz, again, maybe landing pages, ad copy if you're invested that far in it, all right? Or it could be giving instructions to your marketing company in regards to the campaign, because your ad company will not do them. My experience is ad companies don't change creatives and stuff very often, especially the really bad ones, all right? But you want to be actively invested in with them, all right? Especially if they're not a trade-bound advertiser. I can promise you they won't be doing these things for you. All right. And you'll have very mediocre results or very high cost to acquire customers. Okay. So in the chat, sorry, I'm going to back up in there. How many of you guys are going to do at least one of these things? How many of you guys think they could actually pull off one of these things this weekend or before the weekend? Easy peasy, right? All right. So, and again, motivate yourself now. All right. Give yourself no reasons to do these, because what I find a lot is that, people that come up with great ideas have a problem, or hear great ideas, I should say, on these calls. All right. They get excited, they get pumped, they get a nice dopamine boost. All right. But then something happens between, that great idea and then the moment that comes where they could implement. Don't let that be you. Okay. Don't be that guy. Even if it's uncomfortable. All right. Get into the habit of execution. We don't need to overthink this. We don't need to make it perfect. All right. Done is better than perfect. All right. I often try to get people to understand, until you are a expert level marketer. All right. There is no such thing as precision. All right. It's having activity. All right. It's getting it out there. It's learning from the experience of doing it and getting better and better at it. That gets you to that expert level where you can be precise. All right. You can be well-rounded. All right. But I'll tell you, my business didn't get to where it is by being, something that I wasn't at the time. All right. It came from just execution. All right. By relentless execution, whether it went well or what did not. And I'm encouraging everyone here to pick the thing they're going to do and just do it. Okay. Don't think about it. All right. So I'll share this quick story with you, and we actually just pulled this up. I think it was at the beginning of August, And we have a customer just started with us. We've started working with them. No, this was, yeah, we have their CRM. They had never ever sent out anything in their CRM. In other words, they had never ran a retarget campaign through it. They'd never made any offers. They just used it basically to store contacts. What's the point in storing all of those contacts, all right, if you're not using them for anything, right? Makes no sense to me. And, the other resistance that I got from them was around contacting people that they hadn't actually done business with, which I think is absolutely hilarious, especially if you've paid to generate that lead. All right. And they go out and they price the job. They spend all this time with that person, and then they find out they don't get the job. And immediately that person's an enemy they're never going to talk to again. All right. How many of you guys have been guilty of this? Okay. I would say the majority are. All right. Because what are you going to do with that person? Right. You figure that, again, you're an adversary now, where I will say that it's quite the opposite. Just because you didn't win the job now doesn't mean that you can't win work in the future or referrals. Okay. It's just about staying in touch and understanding that your client doesn't see you as the enemy. All right. Just because they didn't work with you. Again, if you did everything right and, built trust with them, that is a genuine relationship. All right. It's a transactional relationship, but it's still a relationship. You may still have access to their access to their email. All right. How many of you guys right now in your email box have allowed, someone to email market you? How many? I know I have a ton of them in there, right? Newsletters, you name it. Things that I was interested in at one point, they're just hanging out in there and they have to be cleaned out all the time. All right. But ever so often, something comes through on my email, all right, that, I'm very interested in and I do buy. Okay. Well, your customers are the same. All right. Especially if it's personalized. Okay. If it's thoughtful and something that fits with it. I think I shared the story on our last call about the kind of campaigns we run, especially to the customers we've lost. All right. So last year we were able to, and we'll be rerunning it again this year. We're a metal roofing contractor. We, of all the deals that we had lost, that we knew that somebody had gone on and worked with someone else, we ran a fall campaign where we promoted snow stops, which is required for a metal roof. We knew our competitors wouldn't install them because they'd want to give them the cheapest price. And then aluminum work and general service. That was able to get us back about $740,000 in revenue. All right. To people that were already right there. All right. We'd already had a relationship with them. Okay. We knew they would need other services. We just simply asked if they would be interested in us, pricing their work for them. Bam, it works. Okay. So this is exactly what we had happen with one of our other clients. And again, he was reluctant. He was unwilling at a certain point. And lo and behold, all right, we're able to generate about $247,000 with just going through his existing customer base. Okay. All of you guys, I can promise you, if you're doing any sort of marketing, if you have any sort of marketing system in place, even if you don't, all right, we all have opportunities in our pipeline right now. Okay. People that you should call back. All right. So I want you to go ahead and take action on these things. All right. So here's some of the things that I'm going to hear. So I'm going to try and time your objections to this. Right. I'm going to try and see again how in touch I am with what you would tell me if we were having a one-to-one. So it's too late in the summer. Okay. How many of you guys right now are saying that in your head? Oh, it's too late in the summer. Okay. It's actually the perfect time. All right. It's not too late. It's exactly on time. Homeowners are looking for contractors this week, like the next couple of weeks. Again, historically in your business, if you were tracking your sales revenue, if you're a residential contractor, a little different with the commercial guys, but there are sales trends, all right, in residential, especially these next few weeks are huge. All right. You'll see a huge bump in your sales, just like in the spring. All right. So it's not too late. And in fact, it's not too late all the way up into September. All right. And beyond. Okay. Texting past clients feels salesy. Who would have this excuse for me? All right. My response to you would be it's that you're not selling. All right. You're reminding And a two-sentence text saying fall is filling up is a service to a homeowner who is going to Google someone else. Okay. All right. So think about that. It's actually a service, right? People appreciate it. Okay. I don't have time for all five. Cool. I knew that I would get that. And I don't necessarily even disagree with you, although I think all five could be done in about 4 hours or less. Okay. Generally less. All right. But pick one. All right. I want you to think about all the things you're spending your time doing. All right. So if you have no excuses, if you're out running your job, all right, if you're out on the production team, you have no excuse if, as far as I'm concerned, and again, you may not like what I say, but like there's only really one job that I can do that would make enough money to be able to afford my salary, and that's sales. Right? If I'm not selling, I'm not directly selling to someone, I'm losing money by the hour. Okay. If I, God forbid, were to be delivering material or running a project or supervising, all right, I am losing enormous amounts of money on a scale of 10 to 1. All right. Because I could only possibly pay, a foreman or someone to do that work $50 an hour. All right. But meanwhile, my average when I'm selling is over 1,000. So you do the math. Okay. When we're talking about marketing, it's very much in that same realm, right? So pick one. All right. I promise you, as you get more consistent with it, and even right now, okay, that's going to convert for you and you will see what I'm talking about, right? For most of us here, if you haven't put the dots together, all right, there's only really one place you make money in your business, and you're free to argue with me about it all you want. Okay. The only place that we make money in our business is when we sell. That is where the money and the profit is made. Okay. Everything else after that is an expense. Okay. So again, take a different mindset to this. Understand what the value of doing these things are per hour. All right. And it's going to make it a lot easier for you to prioritize them. All right. Best example I could say, if you guys spent 2 hours and it turned over a $30,000 project, all right, what would that mean? What does that look like? What's that return look like for you? Is it something you're more likely to repeat in the future? Absolutely. This is how those good habits get formed. All right. But if you're not looking at it in the proper way, it's also easy to miss because it's not something that's urgent or that is absolutely an emergency you need to do now. Okay. Ads don't work in my market. Oh, if I hear this one more time, I swear to God. Ads with a $500 total budget don't really work anywhere. Okay. So again, when you're thinking about what you should be spending, all right, and you're afraid of that 500 to $500 mark, and that's where you're comfortable. And God knows we've had lots of clients that are in that scarcity mindset around it. All right. Don't even bother. Okay. I would even say that it's not even worth it. You're not going to get enough traction to make it worth it. All right. Especially when the average cost to acquire a customer is 1,200. Okay. It's just simple math. All right. Some of that is much higher. If we were talking about a residential remodeler, they can be 25, they can be 5 grand, and you're still very profitable at that. Okay. So 2K would be the minimum with a seasonal, like an urgent seasonal copy. Okay. That would be the pay to play route for yourself. Again, lots of ways to debate that one, but I just thought I'd throw it out there in case anybody is saying that to themselves. Let me reassure you. Okay. If you're going into it with a small budget, I would put it towards some of the other things that I've discussed with you. All right. If you have the opportunity or if you have the ability to spend a 2K, that is a entry level healthy budget. All of us on this call should look forward to the day that they can spend $30,000 to $40,000 a month on marketing. All right, profitably. And like I just said, for me, the way I look at my marketing across the board on an average, all right, is every time I put that dollar in, all right, I'm getting about $5.50 back within 90 days. Okay. So if you knew that was going to happen every single time, all right, without fail, how many times would you put your dollar in? We want to make sure that we have the right mindset around these things. So which move do we go with deep next on next week? So I see a couple of guys that are, especially on the streams, I'm seeing, some repeat guys here. All right. Which move do we go with deep on next week? All right. The SMS templates. All right, we can list the segmentation, response scripts. How many of you guys are having a hard time with text? Out of curiosity. Anyone here? Okay. The storm chasing, again, I can make an entire call about just that, right? Door knockers bring you all of the creative and the content. I'll give you guys all the templates that you can get these things acted upon. The neighborhood route, again, this is one that I can easily say has a 20 to 30x return. All right, easily 20 to 30x return. And if you're doing any sort of paid marketing and not doing this, you're basically burning cash. Okay. Again, it's not enough now just to get in on a paid ad. That is the most expensive customer you're going to acquire. All right. Although it's still profitable at $1,200, when you really start to add up the people costs and everything else that goes into that whole exchange, all right, and then you just leave 3 or 4 lay down customers that would have just gone ahead with you had you made the approach, all right, it seems absolutely ridiculous. All right. We should be using our paid campaigns to get into areas, to get into circles, to get into, communities, and then through good marketing and thoughtful conversations, remaining there and being dominant. Okay. How about the referral cache? We can go through the whole funnels and all the tools that can be added to it, including optimizing what we're using. Anybody's interested in that? Let's see, we've got one for time and ads. Got one for ads. Okay. And then the ads. Yeah, I'm happy to run a whole call on that. How we measure them, what kind of creatives are working. So if you're interested and you want to put a vote in, give me the letter that you are most interested in, or just put in ads, and we'll make that our next week's call. All right. Right on. Looks like ads is going to win on here in the stream. Got about 10 votes for it. Right on. All right, done. So next week will be ads. Okay, so anybody have any questions about what we just discussed? Anybody really struggling to find themselves motivated here? All right. The way I want you to do it is, again, if you're somebody that needs to have a lot of clarity and a lot of answers before you take action, all right, I challenge you to ask your questions now and get as much clarity as you need, all right, but plan to take action immediately, all right, as soon as we get off this call, or if you're not already doing it now, all right, if you have a marketing agency or anyone else you're working with, again, make this happen, all right. Okay, so any questions, throw them in the chat. Anybody want to unmute themselves? I'm here for you for the next 5 minutes. All right. You're interested in, oh yeah, absolutely. If any of these topics that we've been discussing, you're looking to get some help in your business or a game plan, of course, we're a consultant. We help to actually just implement all these systems. So we would essentially be the person that would be doing these things automatically for you if you worked with us. All right, feel free to grab the link in the chat. Can't promise I can work with everyone. There's only a select group that we work best with, but I'd love to at least give you the right directions and come up with a game plan that you can execute if we're not the right fit. Okay. All right then. Hope everybody is preparing to take work. Do I do commercial? I do roughly about 70%. We do a different type of, well, there's not really a different type of commercial, but we work generally with building owners, and we do a tremendous amount of commercial. Yes. 70-30 split. All right. Everybody have a wonderful day. Can't wait to see your results next week. We'll talk soon.